I can show you the world, shining, shining, splendid. Tell me, princess, now when did you let your heart decide? I can open your eyes, take you wonder by wonder, over, sideways, and under, on a magic carpet ride. Oh, new world, a new fantastic point of view. No one to tell us no, or where to go, or say we're only dreaming.
A whole new world, a dazzling place I never knew. But when I'm way up here, it's crystal clear that now I'm in a whole new world.
Now I'm in a whole new world.
Unbelievable sights, indescribable feelings, soaring, tumbling, reeling through an endless diamond skies. A whole new world.
Don't you dare close your eyes.
100,000 things to see. I'm like a shooting star. I've come so far. I can't go back to where I used to be.
You rise to pursue.
I'll chase them anyway. There's time to spare. Let me share this whole new world with you. A whole new world.
A whole new world, a new fantastic point of view.
No one to tell us no, or where to go, or say we're only dreaming. Every turn a surprise, every moment when let go, I'll chase them anywhere. There's time to spare, anywhere.
There's time to spare.
Let me share this whole new world with you. A whole new world.
A whole new world.
That's where we'll be.
That's where we'll be.
A thrilling chase
For you and me.
Oh, kia ora, e te whānau. O tino ātāhua te waiata nei. That was Usher and his mama. Oh my gosh, if you didn't listen to that and you didn't get tingles down your spine or you didn't feel something, then wow. You couldn't listen to that waiata and just not see the connection between a mother and a son, and I reflect because yesterday was Papa's Day, was Father's Day, and to be honest, it was a bit of a struggle for me. I'm just fortunate that I have a lot of whānau around me. My husband's whānau, who, we've been really busy with our husband's whānau doing tribal stuff as well as doing the afi with our whānau as my husband. Yeah, it's just heartbreaking what they've been through in the last year or so. And as you all know, I have my own story. And I was talking to a mama who had lost her son, uh, um, through unfortunate circumstances. And when you lose a family member through not a natural death, if you understand what I'm saying, the grief is I'm not saying that any death, there's a grieving, but unforeseen circumstances, there's a whole layer of trauma that we have to deal with, and I don't know if that grief ever parts with you. So it's just ka aroha, but being at these tangihana and these memorial in a way have been quite healing for me myself with my loss, because um, my papa was my po, and as you're all aware, we just come out of the Māori Land Court, and whew, it was pretty full on and pretty intense for all of us. And I believe that the QC didn't have an easy time of it as well. And just absolutely proud of our lawyer, Alana Thomas, who reo is tino ata hua, and the way that she conducted our hearing, and the manner and the mana that she did it in, was just empowering in itself. Empowering in itself. And I know for a fact that I believe the QC was floundering and certainly doesn't understand or respect. I don't think she respected our tikanga or respected our reo as well. She certainly was doing a hissy fit over ensuring protocols and translation were put in place. And she tends to forget, as I've mentioned in my other lives, tends to forget that is the Māori Land Court, and te reo is an official language of Aotearoa. But anyway, thank you all for coming on. Lorraine, Tiana, awesome hun for coming on here. Lynn, Baron, Mihi, kia ora, Regina. Yes, the waiata is tino atahua. I mean, just um it just lifts you, and to see, gosh, music touches your soul, I believe. And it is a beautiful waiata by a mama and a son. So thank you for that. What I'm going to do, whānau, is I'm going to share a video shortly, and it's a must watch, actually. And it's saying, rather than Sky News Australia talking about us, that's an expectation that we have of our own media, right? And so you can see that our own media have lost their way. And as far as I'm concerned, I mean, there's an absolute hit and smear campaign for those that they class as conspiracy theorists, those that dare to challenge the government. And what they do with my name is they're associating it with a lot of other conspiracy theorists that are standing for local government. And I actually think it's having the opposite effect to what they wanted, and it's actually making people more aware, and we're actually getting more support. And so, I think their strategy is backfiring. But here's the thing: mainstream media has lost its way. It is no longer the fourth estate. When you're sponsored media, then you are only a propaganda machinery, right? So we've had that Fire and Fury documentary, and now we've had these hits, smear campaigns on a lot of us who are running for local government. Hey, I got broad shoulders and bring it on. And I'm looking forward to the public debates. I've got my first one tomorrow night in Kirikiriroa. And so, bring it on. And if you want to challenge me, well, you better come with your research, mate, if you want to challenge me, because I look forward to the challenge and I want to put some of those issues on the table. But, let's keep local government politics and local government in that arena, because I know that there are going to be a few hecklers amongst the audience and people that are put there purely to heckle us. And so I just say, bring it. And come in your Sunday best, mate, is all I can say. I look forward to that, and people don't realise I actually thrive on that type of debating environment. So I'm just, I can't wait. So it all starts off tomorrow, and I'm still filling up my calendar. Be doing some more door knocking, and kanohi ki te kanohi, I think is the best approach. Hoia no, let me share this next video whānau, and then let's have a kōrero about it when it finishes. So I'm just gonna go, and here it is. Just making sure that it's up. Yep. Okay. I'm gonna play it now.
First, New Zealanders are finally waking up to the gross ineptitude of their lockdown-happy Prime Minister. After enjoying one of the longest political honeymoons in modern politics, thanks largely to the adoring media coverage, Jacinda Ardern and her Labour Party are facing some ugly poll numbers and protests. If an election were held today, New Zealand's Conservative National Party would form government with the support of the right-leaning ACT Party, and with a healthy margin too. That's according to the latest One News Cantor poll. Ardern's ratings as preferred Prime Minister have dropped to 30%, the lowest she's seen since becoming Prime Minister back in 2017. But she is still slightly ahead of her challenger. Now, for years, the overwhelming majority of local and international media overlooked her many broken promises and harebrained policies to promote Ardern as some crusading compassionista, the queen of empathy. But there's nothing kind-hearted about what she has inflicted on New Zealand, from extreme culture war policies to crippling and irrational lockdowns to destructive economic policies. For Australia, there's also concern about New Zealand's continuous kowtowing to China. The left like to memory hold the uncomfortable fact that their queen of empathy came to power in 2017, promising to slash immigration numbers. And she only secured office after entering into a bizarre alliance with Winston Peters and his nationalist New Zealand First Party. She then went on to win an election in her own right in 2020. But if the latest polls are right, she is facing a thumping defeat, and Peters is among those aghast at the damage the Ardern government has wreaked. The man responsible for first making Jacinda Ardern Prime Minister has been absolutely scathing about her impact on the country. He wrote earlier this month, "The disconnect from the Liberal elite's woke cultural agenda and what happens in the real world is now all on show." Peters also knows that blabbering about kindness is far easier than actually implementing sound policies that improve lives. He wrote, "The latest figures show there are now around 5 times the number of people living in cars than there were before Labor was in government. How can the Be Kind Labor Party explain that?" Best-selling author Douglas Murray, and he'll be joining us shortly, summed it up best when he said this about Jacinda Ardern. that she excels at performative caring but lacks confidence, adaptability, and genuine empathy. What she does have is the bulk of the New Zealand media firmly behind her. So don't be surprised if Ardern manages to secure a third term with the help of the Maori Party and the Greens, though that looks unlikely based on current polling. Despite the media protection racket, many New Zealanders have finally worked out that their PM is more style than substance.
Do you need to ship a large or heavy item? Go to wisemove.co.nz.
It's a bit of a short clip, but you would hope that our media would have done something similar if it wasn't so in the pockets of the government, waiting for their $327 million. I mean, I think that must help. But that's why you have to call them a sponsored propaganda machine. I love what the reporter said, crusading compassionista, whatever that word means, but I'm assuming she's crusading as a kind, compassionate person, when in actual fact her actions have done the complete opposite. Now, I don't know if you watched Sunday last night, and there was a shocking piece about a charity that was abusing people living in emergency housing, and taking their dignity and human rights away from them, from the actual charity itself, to the security guards, and it was heartbreaking. And yes, you've got politicians jumping on the bandwagon now. Here's the question that I have: why have you not been pushing this issue prior to watching the Sunday? This is after the fact, rather than trying to deal with the issues prior to this, and instead of getting on that bandwagon. Absolutely, it is disgusting. This government says, well, they're better in motels than living in cars, but if you get treated less than a human, and your dignity is taken away, and you're a vulnerable, you're part of that vulnerable community, well, shame on this government. And like the report just said, Winston said that there are 5 times more people living in cars than before they came to power nearly 5 years ago, and that's an indictment on this government, right? Mental health has just gone out the window. People are suffering big time. And again, the government doesn't want to admit that there's a crisis there, like they don't want to admit that there's a crisis with housing. So she's played her role really well. But as that report says, where's the substance? Where's the substance? And I just seen a report that this government, 5 years later, better late than never, wants to reform the mental health system. And they've only been in power for nearly 5 years, and now it's an issue. They've only been in power for nearly 5 years, and the housing problem is worse. Now, you know that one of the issues that I'm standing for mayor in Kirikiriroa. But what's important about my role standing for mayor is I want to put some important issues on the table, and I don't believe, and I've stated that on a number of lives and to people that I talk to, that this is not just a central government issue, it's not just a local government issue, it's the whole of our community issue, this housing crisis. We were in a housing crisis 5 years ago. I don't know what you call it now. It just breaks my heart when you see a mama and her babies forced to live in a tent. Now, today we went outside and it was freaking cold. And it's awesome. You go sit in a cafeteria, and people just come in, and that's what I love. I love just getting out there in the community, sitting down, having a cup of coffee, and people coming in and sitting down and having a kōrero with you. And that's what it's all about. It's just getting out and about, even in the cold weather. And my feet were frozen, my fingers were frozen. It was I can't explain it. It was icy cold. It was wet. It was windy. Uh, um, Raining hard, and there were still people out and about. But can you imagine living in a tent with your babies? I mean, that's third world country type of living, right? That's how refugees live when they've been disenfranchised in their own communities. And this is this is what we're witnessing now. And what are these politicians? Where's the opposition on this? After the fact, they see it as an issue, and that's not freaking good enough. And I just about swore, but that's not freaking good enough. It's not freaking good enough to wait for a Sunday current affairs program who's done the investigation, done the research. And if you're an MP from that constituent seat, shame on you, because this issue has been around for a long, long time. And like I stated in my Mayor campaign profile statement, we have 1,000 whānau living in emergency housing here in Kirikiriroa alone, 1,000 whānau. And so I want to, the current leadership, I said, want to sell our civic building off and put a motel there. Well, here's the civic thing to do. Here's the civic thing to do, and that's to turn that into council apartments to house some of these whānau that are, these babies, these children that don't have a home to call their own. So we need to tackle this issue. And it's great that Sunday has made it a mainstream issue, and it's great that these parties after the fact, National and Te Pāti Māori, after the fact have identified it's an issue. Now let's do something about it, because that's what I'm trying to campaign on in Kirikiriroa. And I don't believe it's just the central government, but it has to be driven by central and local government and by the community as a whole, because it's a major issue. Because here's the thing: if you've got a warm home, a warm bed to go to, just imagine how good that makes you feel as a human being, right? And just imagine the trauma and the stress that you and your babies are under when you don't have nowhere to stay. So I seen the charity. What's the name of the charity? Vision, I think. And the CEO came on, and the media's been interviewing them, and they state, we're dealing with some difficult people. You have no idea what we're dealing with. You're dealing with difficult people. You got funding from this government to deal with those difficult people, but not to throw them out on the frickin' street. And so we need to come together as a community to awhi and support. When you have vulnerable communities, then there's a strain. There's a strain on the whānau. There's, people turn to drugs, they turn to alcohol. Yes, there's domestic violence as well. But that family is under stress like we would never experience ourselves. Like, you just look at, I do my lives now in my boudoir, as I call it. And, this room is warm. You know, it's comfortable, and yet we have whānau that, you know, are homeless. And homeless doesn't mean just sleeping in a car. Homeless doesn't mean sleeping out on the streets. Homeless means couch surfing. So going from one whānau to another, sleeping on people's couches, sleeping on the floor like marae styles, sleeping in garages, sleeping in cars. You know, that's homelessness. And I just think it's an indictment on us. We're creating billionaires, and if you've seen, you know, Russell Brand and you know, a lot of the stuff that I share about Russell Brand. So I was interviewed at the end of last week, so I'm waiting for another article to come out. And I don't know if it's going to be a hit piece. We'll have to wait and see. The reporter, He Māori Ia, said that she will put in some of my concerns. You know, the story about my papa. Even though and I've seen them put in Ellie Cook, her article. They said she claims her son is vaccine injured. Well, there's no claims. I mean, I've got my father's medical records. This ain't a claim. This is a fact. My father did not have these so-called diseases prior to his vaccination. It's a fact. So, you know, and I'm looking forward to people challenging me on that, because, you know, here's the thing: they can't challenge you on that, because they can't say that he didn't pass away with his vaccine injury. They can't say or justify how these diseases come about after he was vaccinated and after he got his booster. They can't explain that to me, because the doctors couldn't. Here's the problem. The problem is no one investigated it. The problem is, as soon as they saw that he was vaccine injured, they turfed him. They turfed him. They wanted to wash their hands of him. And that's the issue. No one investigated. So you go to MedSafe. There's data sitting there, right? And we've had Dr. Hatchard, Dr. Guy Hatchard. You know, he's gone into a lot of different data sets. He's pulled all these data, the different data, because he's a statistician. He's a scientist, and he's able to do that. We don't have that expert eyes, right? But all I need is MedSafe. And not one media outlet has challenged this government on the 63,000 vaccine injuries and the thousands that were serious. Not one media outlet has challenged this government on those facts alone, let alone knowing, as MedSafe said, only 5%. Between 5 and 10% of that data is captured. You know why? Because it wasn't mandatory. Why would you bring in an experimental drug or hazard, going by the Pfizer safety data sheet? Why would you bring in something that hasn't been tested properly and not make it mandatory to capture that data if you don't want that data to show something? Because data speaks its own language, right? Data is our best friend. In another life, I wish I was a statistician. in another life, such an important mahi, being a statistician now. But we're lucky we've got Dr. Guy Hatchard, and you know, I suggest that you all go onto his page and start reading a lot of his research and his reports. And I've given the journalists access to some of his reports. And they can't say that the information isn't out there. It depends on where they're looking. I mean, I wouldn't say it was a screaming match with the reporter, but it was very strong debate. And what was hard case is she said to me, I'm asking the questions, not you. And I said, but this is the open debate that we need. This is the open debate that's not happening. This is the discussion that the scientists should be having. Just like in a courtroom, you have the applicant and the respondent, right? And you've got the lawyers, and they butt heads. They debate. They use the evidence, and whoever comes up with the best evidence and best argument wins that case. Science is exactly the same, but they've shut that discussion down. And lo and behold, if you dare, if you dare to go against the government's narrative, lo and behold, if you go against the government's narrative, then they do a smear campaign and they do a media hit on you. Well, I take that as a badge of honor, actually. That's a compliment. Why? If I'm pissing off mainstream media, it must mean that I'm hitting some points on the nail, because what they're trying to do is they're trying to discredit, and it's happened all around the world. Hey, I'm in good company. But I do feel aroha for those people who have maybe have put their hands up for the very first time for local government and are not used to this type of furore, smear campaigning. I mean, why didn't they do a smear campaign on Jacinda Ardern being a alumni of the World Economic Forum, and a lot of the white paper and cordial that's coming from Klaus Schwab? I mean, you could easily do a smear campaign on that stuff alone, but they didn't. All of a sudden there's a smear campaign if you dare to challenge the government's narrative, and then you're classed as a conspiracy theorist. E kira. E kira. Those sharing dis and misinformation are losing credibility themselves. Like the Disinformation Project. Was it the Misinformation Project? One or the other. So who's checking the fact checker? Who's monitoring the monitor? Well, I'm glad to say that poor Dr. Guy Hatcher, he's got no ministry. He hasn't got millions or billions of dollars behind him supporting him. He's doing everything voluntarily and relying on donations. And he's doing the job of a whole government. That's disgusting. Oh, kia ora, Ellie. I was watching your interview with, oh gosh, what's his name? Is it James the farmer? Sorry if I got his name wrong. You were awesome. You were awesome, Ellie. So thank you for sharing the good word. Ellie's put up a new page. It's a counter, actually, to the smear campaign. Yes, the Disinformation Project. Thank you. The Disinformation Project. Farmer James, that's it. Thank you. Farmer James. So go and look on Farmer James, because Ellie was interviewed on there. And man, she's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And, we've got the Outdoors and Freedom Party got some really good candidates standing. And Whaiahine, myself, and Ellie standing under the banner of the Outdoors and Freedom Party. So, when you see them, if you're in their neck of the woods, Manukau, Tasman, and Kirikiriroa, please come out and support us. It's really important. It is so important to get like-minded people like us Community. We've all worked for our communities. Hey, we've all worked for our communities, and I do a lot of pro bono mahi in the space that I work in. A lot. The majority of my work is pro bono. Why? Because whānau can't afford it. Why? Because our legal aid is run to the ground, and I mean, we need to reform that as well. People getting access to justice doesn't happen. You got to be wealthy now to get access to justice. Just, you start looking around at our education system. So when we had those bomb scares, and then our schools, they locked our schools down. Well, they should have vacated those schools if there's a bomb scare. Some schools put their kids into the hall. What does Ellie say? I'm just going to bring your comment up, Ellie. Ellie says, yep, not that the papers say what we do, but then we don't do it for recognition. Absolutely, Ellie. I'm really passionate about my community, especially in the justice system. I'm very passionate about Papa Tuanuku and protecting Papa Tuanuku, and I'm very passionate about finding warm, affordable homes for our whānau, because that's where the well-being starts. If you do not have a home to call your own, you can't put your children in their own bed, in their own bedroom, then all the ills of society will reap havoc on that whānau. Before we look at anything else, we've got to house our whānau. And this government been in power for nearly 5 years, and they've done zilch in that space. Zilch. Zero. Nada. Maybe a couple here, there, and everywhere, but not compared to what they wanted to do. Their massive plan was to build 100,000 homes. I don't even know if they built 100 homes. But if we care about our whānau, we've got to house them. And, Labour, if they looked at their own tupuna, in regards to the policies of old in the 1940s, after the Second World War, right? They had a massive housing policy. I mean, we are the benefactors of that housing policy. My whānau. There's a lot of whānau that are benefactors of that housing policy. Absolutely. I'm just reading Marion's comment. Millions and millions of dollars. We're creating kings and queens in the motel environment because millions of dollars are being paid to house these whānau. Now, I had a whānau member that was living in a motel, and the government was paying $2,700 a week to house a very small family that had no bedroom. So it was all just one living plan, right? Thank goodness that they are now housed in a home. But the adults were sleeping on a double bed, and the children were sleeping on single beds in the same room where they ate and watched TV. That was their about the size of this room. That's what they lived in. $2,700 a week. And that would have been over a couple of years ago now. So it probably has gone up. So there's certainly, and in the short period of time that they were in, living in the motel, that could have been a deposit for a home. Why do they not give the people a deposit for a home? Because they're spending so much money housing them in these motels. So whānau, I think I'm just gonna leave it there. And like I say, hopefully I can do some lives in between or after these public meetings. And local government campaigning is a bit different to central government campaigning. Central government campaigning, you really do need a team of people. Local government is just really me and my darling. He drives me everywhere. Yeah, I am just so fortunate. So fortunate. But anyway, whānau, I'm going to love yous and leave yous. Have a good rest of the night. Hang on. I'm just going to bring up some of the comments that are coming up. What are you saying, Patty, before I tune out? Patty's saying it's annoying that people are complaining when 1,500 people are homeless and there are no homes. Where would you put them? Look for resolutions not making homeless feeling doubly vulnerable. Yeah, that's right. But the government's the government in power, and they could have created a housing policy that the Labor government did in the 1940s. And like I say, we were benefactors of their housing policy. That impacted on whānau for generations, the same way as homelessness will impact on whānau for generations. Thank you. Go well tomorrow. Yes, the first debate starts Apopo. So I am looking forward to it. But anyway, whānau, like I said, I'm going to sign off now. Thank you so much for tuning in. Love your comments and we'll keep in touch. Kia pai tō pō, ka kite anō, kia ora rā.